Hey, welcome back guys. Like I said, I wanted to do this whole solo thing in 2 videos. So if you haven't watched the first one, go check that out to begin with. But essentially, I'm just giving an overview of a lot of solo games that I have played where, I've enjoyed them or even not enjoyed them, but I'm trying to categorize them so that you can think to yourself, right, well, what kind of solo game do I want? This is what I'll go for. And I'll give my fair opinion as to what I think of each one. So, continuing on from last time, we're going to go on to what I would call self-improvement. Self-improvement is going to be the ones where you essentially are just trying to beat your points. How well can I do? Well, I played this game and I got this many points. Well, now, can I beat that score? They may have a goal you have to reach as a minimum, but for the most part, you're just playing it to see how well you do. So, certainly, Uwe Rosenberg is very famous for these ones, because I think pretty much all his solo modes are just basically this. I don't think he has a single AI opponent. But Feast of Odin, a big giant one over there in the bottom corner, with the expansion, must buy. But yeah, Feast of Odin's a solid game in its own right, pretty heavy, pretty involved, but this one has a pretty good solo mode in it. You don't have an AI opponent, but what happens is these workers come out onto the spaces. It's a worker placement game, and they cover up the spaces that you went to before. So it forces you to diversify your actions from round to round, so you can't just spam the same thing over and over again. Aside from that, it's just basically try and get the most points that you can and reach a certain threshold, like beat Uwe Rosenberg or something. And this is pretty good, actually. I mean, if you like Feast for Odin, I don't think you're going to dislike the solo mode. I think it's good. You still get to do what you do in the game, which is, grab the polyomino tiles, decide what you're going to do, choose a different path to victory. Do I want to go exploring? Do I want animals? Only in the expansion do you want animals, but, or do I want to, go raiding lots? You still get to experience the fun of the main game. You just have a little bit of an extra challenge thrown in. And on a similar note, I will mention that Caverna and Agricola have solo modes effectively as well. Again, just try and get the most points. I much prefer Caverna to Agricola, but, I give Agricola some respect. It's just a bit too restrictive, too punishing on the scoring for me, and, I much prefer Caverna. But that's a different story. But both of them play pretty much the same. It's like, here's my farm, here's my thing, here's my, village, whatever. Build it up and see how many points I've got. But I don't tend to play Caverna solo. I prefer to play that with more players. And the same would happen with Agricola. However, Fields of Arle, which is over there in the corner next to Feast of Odin, that on the other hand, this is a good solo game. This is one of my favourite Euro solo games. It can be played with 2 players, and with the expansion, which is again a really good buy, it can be done with 3 players. But I find myself playing this solo more often. And this is a sandbox point salad Euro game. Do you like the whole thing of building up a farm in front of you and seeing how it grows? Yes. Do you like the resource management thing of right, I've got some wood, I've got some stone, I'm going to build this? Yes. Do you like having lots of different paths to victory with, that you can basically change every game? Yes. Do you like to be allowed to do what you want to do? Oh yes. This game is made for me in terms of its Euro thing. It's basically like the Caverna and Agricola and all that greatest hits, and all shoved into one game. You've got your farm to build up, where you're mining peat, building field, getting animals, extending the dikes because you're building towards the seafront. But then you've got all these different tools down the board where you can upgrade the tools so that the actions are better for you. You've got buildings, and then throw in the expansion. You've got tea, you've got exporting. In the base set, you've got transportation to the local villages. Oh my god, you name it, this Euro game has it. It's insane, and I love it. It's such a good solo game. Honestly, you like Uwe Rosenberg's style of game, and you want my pick for the solo game for Uwe Rosenberg, Fields of Arle, hands down, no question. So, the Pursuit of Happiness. Yes, the Pursuit of Happiness over there. Euro Game of Life, as I call it. I don't think I did a review for this one. Did I? Might have been a long time ago, but you've heard me talk about it on top 10 lists, top 100 lists, and I love this one. This one is just sandbox style Euro game again. You have to get meet certain goals, so it's kind of objective based, but catch my breath. But for the main part, you're just trying to get as many points as you can. Get the minimum threshold and see how well you've done. But this one is a really great game. I mean, you are basically just telling your story, like in the game of life, your way. I don't have to roll a die and land on a particular space. I basically just say, right, let's see, do I want to grow a bonsai tree? Do I want to direct a play? Shall I go date Susan? Or do I prefer Gary? Do I want to get a job as a doctor? Do I want to become a checkout waiter? I don't know. Should I buy a house, a car, a boat, a toy collection? I know which one I prefer. And it's just stuff like that. It's just very entertaining to tell your story based on collecting these cards and trading in these free specific resources to buy more cards and meet things like the requirements of having a family, the requirements of keeping your job and stuff. And it's a really entertaining game multiplayer, but solo mode's pretty good as well. Just set it up, get the decks out, and meet those goals. Pretty good, actually. I want to get it to the table again, actually. Oh yeah. Right. Catch my breath, because I have been on the go for like an hour and a half of these videos. Right, Empires of the North. Yeah, this one within hand reach. This amazing game with Ignacy Trzewicz's name on it from Portal Games. This is the sort of, and I suppose I would put Imperial Settlers / Empires of the North, because it kind of works in the same deal. But this one is my pick of the two, and you have specific solo scenarios where you're trying to meet a certain point threshold. Doesn't matter how many points you get necessarily, but you try and beat your score like you normally would. But with this one, very simple solo game to do, because just like in the multiplayer game, you basically just take your faction's deck, put the little action wheel out, set up the solo booklet, whatever scenario it is you're doing, and play as you normally would. Except that you only have 4 rounds, so it is pretty fast. You haven't got to worry about waiting for other people's turns or see what cards they've got. You just straight through 4 different rounds and see if you can meet the solo game's requirements. Gives you different actions, gives you different setups, and Ignacy has been very kind during the isolation period and essentially put these like free DLC stuff on his website, so you can even grab another 2 or 3 scenarios for free off the Portal website in addition to what's already in the box. I love this game. Check out my review. I think I gave it a 10 out of 10, and this was before I did seal, so this definitely would get my seal of distinction. If you want it for your website, Ignacy, by the way, give me a bell. But yeah, really love that one. On the Underground from Ludi Creations. This is a really interesting solo mode. Now, again, like a couple I mentioned before, you have to get this little add-on pack for it, so you might have to get it straight from Ludi Creations direct. But it's a small deck of cards where it has pre-built networks on there, based on, well, they say based on real-life ones. I'm assuming they're accurate, but I don't know. But the great thing with this is that you normally play in multiplayer and you build the trains up as you go along. But with this one, the competitor has 2 networks and they're already built. And based on the 2 you pick, you have to get a certain point threshold, like minimum for them and averages out, whatever. There's a little rule for it. But essentially, you go through the same deal of working out where that passenger is going to go and whether they can use your network. But they've already got a network out. So you have to try and beat them. They won't lay any more trains out, but you've got to now build up around this network that they've got to try and get the passenger as often as it can. And it is challenging. I mean, I have lost it more than I have won it by far. But maybe that was just because I chose some hard networks. But it never feels like I can't win it. It feels like I'm in with a shot. I can do this, but he's just pulling away, now I'm pulling them back. It's a tug-of-war experience. Very challenging, but this is good fun. You've got a lot of replay value with those those different cards, and all they need to do is just make cards for like Berlin and the expansion maps that they do in the future. You can get a lot of replay value out of this small little deck of cards. It's pretty sweet. And again, doesn't require any extra rules really, apart from just how the solo mode interacts, which doesn't really do a lot because it has it pre-built and it doesn't have its own deck. So not many rules on top at all. Walking in Burano, very simple small game, Empress 4. Check out my review on that. I believe I have done one on that one. Simple one, you're building up the coloured houses and they've got symbols like cats and chimneys and plants that you're trying to score points for based on the future inhabitants of your houses. The solo mode is just basically points. It's got a little rule set for how the cards cycle through, but you're basically just trying to see how many points you can get and beat your time trial. So very straightforward, but in terms of portable games, I don't know if I mentioned this one in my portable list actually. If I didn't, I apologise. But yeah, Walking in Burano is a pretty small rectangular box. This would fit the bill for it nicely. So yeah, portable and simple, Walking in Burano. Role player, yes. Sagrada I know has a solo mode. Can't recall if it came from an expansion or if it was in the base game already, but Sagrada was replaced by role player for me. If you want the simpler, more portable version, you get Sagrada. But if you want the slightly more meatier and more thematic version, you get role player, where you're building up your D&D character and you're rolling to try and build up its stats as well as what weapons and traits it has. Really fun game, and it's great multiplayer. But solo's pretty good as well. Again, pretty much just a point value time trial in a sense. Like how many points can I get for this character? But the theme of building the sort of D&D character, especially if, like me, you have dabbled with RPGs in the past, although I've more than dabbled, I had certainly a phase through teenage life where I did a lot of them, and during university as well. Not so much anymore because, well, I haven't got the time. But although I never played Call of Cthulhu, wouldn't mind doing that. I know a couple of my friends do that, but I've never tried it myself. But anyway, so yeah, role player, solid, roll dice, choose some cards, simple rule set. If you know how to play the main game, you should be able to do the solo mode without any trouble. No AI to speak of, it's just a case of how cool can I make my character? So it works for me. Underwater cities, again, you're just getting points. There's a sort of a dummy player for how it works, but it's mainly just what spaces kind of get taken up, and you can kind of game the system. So this is more of a point-based system in a sense. Although, to be honest, with Underwater Cities, I prefer to have multiplayer in this one. Solo mode is not bad, but you can game the system as to what's going to get blocked up. A lot of the good stuff about Underwater Cities is the fact that you don't know necessarily where the opponents are going to go, and you have to really be aware of what they're doing. Whereas in this, you kind of know what's going to happen, and you have to puzzle yourself around it. It's still solid though. I still enjoy it, but I wouldn't necessarily pick this one up for its solo mode. And finally, Rake-Halt, the Uwe Rosenberg light game of farming, where you're building up the greenhouses and selling them to tourists in order to race across this track. The solo mode in this is a story mode, and I use the word story in big old if quotes. It's basically a bunch of event cards that come out and a few little mini challenges that you have to adhere to in order to win the scenario as well as get points. Like I say, story. This is as many Dr. Evil phases as you can do with the word story. It's not really a narrative. It's not really anything like that. It's just kind of like Maracaibo in a sense. It's just a case of, oh yeah, this stuff happens, and it gives you a different way to play the game. Quick, simple, and you get to use some of the cards in the main deck of cards in the main game, which is pretty sweet as well. So it's almost like semi-legacy. Right, that's self-improvement. Now the next two lists, let's see. One of them should be fairly small and have a lot of overlap, which I'll do last, which is the Control Multiple Characters list. But I'll go on to objective-based games now. So with this one, this is complete a scenario, complete an objective, complete the story, survive, that kind of thing. I don't care how many points I've got. In fact, points might not even be a factor. It's a case of, I need to do this and I need to do this now. So with these ones, these tend to be my favourite solo games to play. There are some Euro games I mentioned that were really, really good. But I like thematic games. I want that sense of escapism in my games. These are the sort of things that will do it for me. Now, there are some stuff on here that I don't enjoy. And I'm going to mention those quickly first. Do not castrate me for the fact that I don't like these games. But they deserve an honourable mention. First one, I actually don't know if I like this game or not. I've not played it, but Seventh Continent. People really went mad for this on Kickstarter. I didn't like the fact that it was Kickstarter exclusive only with no retail thing, and on principle, I didn't buy it. It sounds good. I'd like to try it. Discover Lands Unknown was kind of like a spin-off of this that Fantasy Flight done. That was terrible, so I'm hoping that Seventh Continent is a lot better. But I've not played this one. But if you're one of the few that managed to get it, then by all means do so. But I don't think you need to seek this one out like as a must-buy, particularly if it's been inflated in price. However, I think the publisher is doing a retail version of it, which is like the bare bone version of it without all the Kickstarter exclusives. Maybe give that one a try. Now, the next two, I don't like these games. Sorry, I don't like them. But there's no denying that for solo players, Gloomhaven and Mage Knight are solo games that people talk about. I mean, you get like the community to vote on their favourite solo game. They usually mention Gloomhaven, because frankly, if I'm going to play that game, I don't want to play it for 3 hours with multiple players. But, you can play it solo, just control multiple players and go through a story. So fine, Gloomhaven, if you're a lover of it, that will work for you.
Kill him. Kill him now.
Mage Knight, I cannot stand this game, but it's too complicated, too long, and feels more like a puzzle game than it does an actual thematic game. But if you ask the community what their favourite solo game is, and remember on the previous video I mentioned about Elizabeth Davison, I think she likes this one as well, so again, we got very opposite tastes. But yeah, Mage Knight will come out on top. There's no denying that when it comes to solo games, for Eurogamers, this is a big favourite of them, because if you're playing this because you want a thematic, rich, story-based experience, then I want to know what Quaaludes you're smoking, because there is no way this could be better than other more thematically driven games. This is more the Eurogamer's slightly thematic game of going through a fantasy adventure, because it's more about the puzzle of the little deck building element and all the other complex mechanics it's got. But not going to deny, it's super popular. It's got its fans, and if it sounds like something that's up your street, a more complex puzzle-based fantasy game, then by all means, give Mage Knight a look. So, going on to the stuff I actually enjoy, though. Right, so, the LCGs first. The LCGs, I have 3 of them up there. Lord of the Rings LCG, Arkham Horror LCG, and Marvel Champions. All 3 of these are fantastic. They are great. Now, they are money sinks. I will warn you about this. CCGs, the collectible card game, Magic the Gathering and stuff, they are money sinks because of the booster pack thing, where you buy a booster pack and you don't even know if you're getting anything useful in it. That I don't like anymore. LCG is a living card game, where they do expansion packs, but you know what's in the pack. You can find out. You can even scan the code on the front of it to find out all the cards that are in it and decide if you need the pack. And the thing is, with the competitive LCGs, you have to keep going with them, because otherwise the power creep gets ridiculous and you just can't keep up with everyone. Co-op ones, though, like those 3, you can do it at your own pace. Do I need every set? No. I know people with Marvel Champions that are still not even haven't even got to Green Goblin yet. He was halfway through. Whether it's because of availability or not, or just haven't had time. Fine, play with the core set. Core set's still really good. Doesn't matter. It's not like you have to best me at the game. We're working together. If you don't have the Green Goblin, then I'll play with you and I'll bring the Green Goblin scenario with me. You can get around it. But all 3 of these are fantastic. And with them, it's really a case of pick your theme with them. They are money sinks. If you're going to get into them, they're going to cost you a lot. Lord of the Rings has been going on for donkey's years. There's a lot of cards for it. If you're going to jump into this one, it is definitely the heaviest of the 3 in terms of its mechanics. It's definitely the one that rewards multiple plays and gives you some really cool, challenging scenarios, and it wonderfully represents the Lord of the Rings theme, but there's a lot of cards for it. You're going to be getting into this one quite heavily if you're jumping into it. Arkham Horror, the card game's been going on quite a while, but if you're into Cthulhu, this is definitely a good one to do. All of these work at all player counts, really, but better at 2 players or solo. I played Lord of the Rings pretty much solely solo, although I am thinking about doing it 2-handed. Arkham Horror is good to do 2-handed at times, but again, I like it solo. And, in this one with Cthulhu, the investigators, if you played Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror, then, they kind of work in that sense. But they're very good story-based game, that one. The scenarios in Lord of the Rings is already good, but in Arkham Horror, the story is fantastic. Multiple branching paths, choices you have to make. You don't have to win each scenario in order to progress, because some of them just make the next scenario harder or easier for you. There's some good stuff in there, honestly. Really, really good. And Marvel Champions, kind of like a spin-off of Sentinels in the Multiverse in a sense of trying to beat the main villain. And you have your heroes. Do you want to play true solo or control multiple? You can do that. But if you're into Marvel like I am, oh god, you're going to love this game. It is a really good, fun card game. I've played it remotely over the internet. I've played it with people just with their own deck. But I play it solo. I just get my character, villain, go for it. I might even control 2 at the same time, and do some combos. But all these 3 LCGs are fantastic if you're really into those themes. Lord of the Rings, Arkham Horror, and Marvel, but they are money sinks, do be warned. So and I know I've done a review of Marvel Champions recently, actually, so go check that one out. This war of mine, oh god, yeah, this huge thing. This is a big this is a depressing solo game in a sense. I mean, I don't mean depressing as in it's bad to play, but we'll get onto this one later. But oh, this is heavy because I've just put an insert into it and it's got both expansions in it. But this War of Mine, really good PC game, but this one is a survival game. Survive until the deck runs out. Controlling the civilians that you've got to feed them, you've got to keep them warm, you've got to keep them safe from looters and the military, and you've got to go scavenge locations for whatever tropes of food and medicine you can find. It is ridiculously hard. I mean, some of those scenarios are so hard, I'm not even sure they're winnable, but it is a great story-based game. And people sort of go, I feel really depressed after playing it. I don't, because I've really enjoyed it, but I get what you mean. This is a very dark, realistic theme about a war-torn landscape. The civilians having to survive in poverty and that. And it's the moral stuff you have to do in this game, like stealing off the church at times, or turning down people in call of help because you can't survive. And there's some really nasty stuff you do from a morally challenged perspective here. But it's rich in atmosphere. Honestly, one of the best things you can do with this is set this game up, play through a scenario, and put the soundtrack to the video game of this War of Mine on in the background. It is such an atmospheric experience and definitely one to check out. But it is hard. Very hard. Not one for the faint-hearted, I think. The Legendary series of games are all up there. So I'm talking Marvel Legendary. Marvel Legendary is slightly different to the rest, but the encounters are all pretty much the same. So we're talking Marvel Legendary, Alien Encounters, Predator Encounters, X-Files, Firefly, what else was there? James Bond. Basically all these Legendary deck builders. They are really good fun. More so than others, but with these, pick your theme. They're all good. They're all good deck building games, and you can play them multi-handed or just play a true solo experience. Personally, the favourite, Alien Encounters. That's my personal favourite. I think the solo mode in that one works best out of all of them, but a lot of that comes down to the theme. I love Predator, I love Alien, I love Marvel, I love Firefly, but I would certainly say that out of the games mechanically, I think the Alien one is the best. Certainly in terms of theme, they're all as good as each other. I love all of those themes, but pick your poison. Do you love X-Files? Then by all means go play the X-Files one. In fact, did they do a Buffy one? Why do I keep thinking they did it? I think they did do a Legendary Buffy, didn't they? Why? I don't know if that's true. Oh god, I think there was. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, okay? It's no. But if that's your thing, go grab that one. That's totally fine. If X-Files is your thing, go buy that one. I love James Bond. I haven't actually tried that one. But yeah, basically, pick your Legendary theme. That's all I can say. They're all as good as each other. Just decide what is your IP of choice. Robinson Crusoe and First Martians. To Robinson Crusoe there. I can't get First Martians off the shelf because it's underneath this. It's currently being set up because I'm playing games of it at the moment. But I do have, on the back of the box at least, but both by Portal Games, both really good thematic scenario-based games of survival where you have an objective to meet, possibly multiple objectives, and you've got to meet them. Really good though. Very difficult. They're hard to win, although I would argue First Martians is a little easier. But, these are really good. Story-based in the sense that you tell your story as you go through. But Robinson Crusoe has all the stuff from Swiss Family Robinson, surviving on an island, dealing with animals, the event cards that go into the deck and resurface. So you might, for example, pick some berries off a tree and you eat them, and so you can feed yourself in the day. But then it comes out of the deck and then the negative effect happens where you start getting stomach cramps because of all the berries you ate. It's stuff like that. But you've got to create stuff like fires and shelters and that, and you've got all the different scenarios in there, including DLC ones and that, which are varied as all get out. I mean, you've got raise a family there, you've got build a signal fire, save Jenny from the coastline, cannibals, volcano. There's all sorts of cool stuff in there. First Martians is no different. Now, people gave this one too much stick because of its launch. Granted, its launch was a bit crubby. It has a bad rulebook in it. It had buggy app to begin with. And yeah, didn't launch too well. But now I honestly urge you, because you can get it dirt cheap, give it another chance. The app is fine. Doesn't bug out on me at all. Works great on a tablet. But as long as you accept that you need to grab the almanac from the Portal website, or the revised rulebook that someone's put on BGG, or watch Rodney Smith's Watch It Played video on how to learn First Martians, as long as you accept you're learning it by one of those methods, First Martians is great. I mean, I love it. It's basically the Martian the board game, trying to get your oxygen and your power to like work right, all these different units or like systems that you need to keep working so you can build stuff, go explore in a rover, fix stuff, and everything's breaking around you. You've got to grow food. It's really cool. And the app does a lot of the bookkeeping for you in terms of story-based stuff where, you know, one round, the gravity starts going really weird and you can fix it as an action, but if you don't fix it too soon, you might get a negative consequence later on. It's a really cool game and really enjoy it. So, moving on, XCOM. Yes, XCOM, I took this off the previous list because I think it's better here. It's not really an AI opponent, even though the app is controlling, like, it's telling the story for you. But XCOM, yeah, if you like the computer games like I did, it's basically XCOM in the box. Yes, you're not doing the whole tactical combat thing. This is more the strategic overlay side of XCOM. But it's great. You've got the multiple like stations to control of like sending interceptors off to kill UFOs, sending military guys out to do tactical missions, building tech, putting the tech out, and that is really cool. The one problem this has is solo mode though. You want stress. If you thought the main multiplayer game was stressful when you each had your own station, try controlling all 4 of them at once. It's insane. You need to be good at this game to be able to control all 4 stations at once. It's like, right, I need to research tech, I'll do this. Oh, no, I gotta fit this card, choose that one, and I gotta do interceptors. It's insane. Ridiculous. But good fun, good tension, good, challenging game, and certainly very thematic. But yeah, I prefer to play this one multiplayer personally because of that. Like, oh my god, I gotta control 4 stations. But don't underestimate it, it's pretty cool. Then getting on to 2 games which are more adventure-based. So again, pick your theme. Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth or Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, both down there in giant boxes. Both are expensive. And I would say both are as good as each other, really. I love both. And they both involve scenario-based, Lord of the Rings has a campaign, whereas Mansions of Madness is multiple scenarios. So there is a bit of a difference. But you lay tiles out, create the map. In Mansions of Madness, you're going into rooms, streets, investigating the whole Cthulhu mythos. Whereas Lord of the Rings, you've got either these 2 battle maps for combat sections, or you've got the sprawling outside map for various other things. And there's an expansion coming out soon. Mansions of Madness has already got tons of expansions for it. But really with these, there are differences mechanically, but I think if you like one, you should like the other. And I love both. So I would say pick your theme. Do you like Lord of the Rings more or Cthulhu more? Pick one, go with it. And these are straight up adventure style games. So you could control multiple characters or have a team with you, but I think with this one you do have to control multiple characters actually. I don't think you can play them with just one character. You'll control a minimum of 2. I recommend 3. But with this one, with these ones, they're just good fun. I mean, I love these 2 themes anyway, especially Lord of the Rings. And, you can have the app. Both of them are app driven. And so the app handles 90% of the bookkeeping for you. You've got to do your own deck stuff in Lord of the Rings, and you've got your own items in Mansions of Madness, but the rest of it is all done on this. Nice and simple. It handles so much for you while giving you ambient music, an ambient sort of background story. Really good, these games. Honestly, give them a look. Okay, we're almost kind of done, I'd say. The next 2 I want to talk about are, do you like deduction games? This is definitely a objective-based, the objective is solve the crime. Yes, there technically has points on both, but frankly, you're not necessarily going to go back and try and beat your score because once you know the plot, you're not likely to go back and do the plot again. So there's kind of one-use things. This is detective and Chronicles of Crime. Chronicles of Crime is in the other room from Lucky Duck Games. Really cool, fairly simplistic. It's the scenarios are hard, But the game system is actually pretty simple, where you use your mobile phone, which is elsewhere, but you essentially like scan these QR codes with whatever device you've got, and that's how you talk to people, link clues together. And there's even a cool little VR section where you've got these little glasses on your phone, you stare at them and you stare at the crime scene. So as you look around 360 degrees, you get to see like, there's some bloodstains there's some documents all over the place. Oh, CCTV camera. Yeah, spot it now. Didn't spot it in the last scenario, that would have helped. But, that's the one problem I have with it. If you miss a critical item in those VR scenes, you are screwed. When it tells you to look at a crime scene, look in detail. In fact, look multiple times to be on the safe side. Do not rush those. But it's really cool. Lots of different scenarios, 2 expansions, and they just kickstarted a new set of games for it, which I didn't kickstart mainly because I've got loads of content to go through anyway, and frankly, there wasn't really much in the way of exclusive content that made me think, you know what, I need that. I can just wait for it to come out on retail, because I'm sure I'll buy it anyway. But yeah, it's a really solid system, Chronicles of Crime. Certainly challenging, but more simpler to pick up. You want the more meaty version though, with really involved stories and really good brain-burny stuff, then you want Detective. Detective is insane for deduction games. It is heavy, it's brain-burny. I mean, the rules are pretty straightforward, but you essentially have a 5-plot campaign in the base game, and a 3-plot campaign in the sequel, the expansion, and there's some standalone scenarios which are being brought out as time goes on, and there's 1 or 2 learning ones. But I love this one. This is the one where when you have multiple people, you have charts. I mean, you have things on the wall saying, oh, so-and-so met them, but then they got killed at 3 o'clock. Where were you at 4 o'clock? You said you were out. Let's go to your house. Oh, I'll plant a lead on you. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much you can do in this. But I'm not great at deduction games anyway. I tend to miss critical points. But this is definitely a good... all the stories have been solid. They're really good stories. You can even go on Wikipedia and find out stuff from the story just for general knowledge. But they're really involved and engrossed. Like, you finish one particular part of a campaign, you've then got to think later on in the campaign, hang on a minute, we need to go back to that because that's relevant now. It's very engrossing. Now, I do think the expansion was better than the first campaign because 3 scenarios are a lot easier to manage than 5. This is not really one that you want to pick up, put down, and then not visit it for ages. You kind of want to really keep on top of this. So that is kind of the warning I would make with this one. Chronicles of Crime, you could pick up and put down whatever. This one, you kind of want to finish the campaign in relatively quick time, but really do enjoy it. Solid deduction game, very thematic, very cool. Alright, that's the objective-based one, so very quickly I'll just go over the last bit of the list, which is the control multiple characters one. This is where there's a load of overlap, because I've already mentioned this. So, the legendary games, as I said, you can control multiple decks and go with that. So, if you want to try out lots of cool combos by yourself, then by all means. Sentinels in the Multiverse, I have not tried that one yet. Now, this one probably should have been mentioned in the objective-based one as well, actually. I do apologize. Yeah, so this is kind of linked with objective-based as well. My favourite game, Sentinels in the Multiverse. You've got your heroes, beat up the main villain. Bit like Marvel Champions, but it was the one that came before, and there's so much content for it now, it's ridiculous. Play recommended with at least 3 heroes, if not 4, by yourself, and love it. If you're into superheroes like I am, it is a must-buy for a solo gamist. The app is fantastic, I know, but in terms of the physical game, I still get a kick of playing this absolute great. And don't worry, the cards aren't in there. They're in a collector's box in the other room. That's just a box for making the video stand out a bit more. But yeah, love this one to bits. You just control multiple heroes, each with their own unique deck. You don't deck build in this, you just get the deck, so it's a bit simpler to get into than the legendary stuff. And it's a really solid game. Love it. This War of Mine, you control multiple survivors. You could play this with 2 to 6 players, but frankly, I don't see the point. You don't really do a huge amount with each character if you do multiplayer. Just control multiple people. All the LCGs I mentioned, you can control multiple hands, so play it with just one deck or multiple decks. Pretty much all the adventure games I mentioned, Mansions of Madness and Lord of the Rings and possibly Mage Knight, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that. Somebody in the comments might have to correct me on this. But, all of those ones like Gloomhaven even and the Seventh Continent, I would say, where you could control multiple people, multiple characters going off. Adventure style ones are like that. certainly in Mansions of Madness and Lord of the Rings, you'll need to. So I'm going to have Aragorn and Gimli and Bilbo Baggins. You know, I'm going to have all three of them, each of their own items and that, but I'm going to control all three. Really good. So pretty much any adventure-based game should allow you to do that. And then XCOM, as I mentioned, control 4 different things at once. Pretty tough, pretty tough. And the other one that I haven't mentioned before, actually, which I suppose this one could go into objective-based. I think this probably does go into objective-based games, but I've only tried it the once, and that is Atlantis Rising 2.0 with this one, because you can just simply play it with controlling multiple characters, but if you play it 2-player, you can have this little robot thing. If you play it 1-player, you have the robot thing and this weird spirit thing going with you. But Atlantis Rising is this cool co-op game where you have to build this contraption in order to get Atlantis to not sink. And it's kind of push your luck with some action management. But solo mode works pretty well. You have a couple of figures that you use to help you with your actions, and you have to create your machine. There's no points, there's no nothing. This one is pretty solid in its 2nd edition and worth going for if you're into it. So yeah, whew, that is it. That is a lot of them, and there probably is a lot more solo games besides. I even mentioned ones I didn't like. In fact, can I think of any off the top of my head which are good for honourable mentions? Yes, one more honourable mention, Nemo's War. I reviewed this, I think. I did a review of this, a written review. It's fine. Too much dice rolling for my fancy. It's very luck-based. And I'm not interested in the Nemo story, like the story books behind it. If you are into Nemo as a theme, then play it, because I think you will get exactly what you want out of it. It's very popular right now in its 2nd edition. It's done, very nicely produced, and I did enjoy my time with it. I just wasn't interested enough in the story and the luck-based like dice rolling, which you do a lot in this game, to warrant keeping it. But certainly give it a look. It's very popular. It's certainly getting a lot more buzz these days. And with Eurogamers, it's definitely more popular than most. But yeah, Nemo's War, give it a look. So yeah, that's all of it. Hopefully these videos have been useful for you. Sorry that they may have gone a bit long. That's why I had to split it into 2 videos. But yeah, I'm losing my voice. I've got to play games later on. And hopefully I've got time to go out for a run. If I'm very quick, I can just about squeeze in a jog. So yeah, that's my videos on solo gaming. So 3 videos for your viewing pleasure. Hope you've enjoyed them. Hope they've just given you an overview as to what solo games are out there and my thoughts on many modes. There's probably a bunch I didn't mention. In fact, Manhattan Project Energy Empire. Not as big of a fan of the solo mode in that one. That's why I didn't really mention it on the list. But like I say, there's going to be games I've forgotten. There's going to be games I haven't played. I have not played every single solo game out there. But my usual defense with people who come up with that as an excuse for downrating a video is I've not played everything. But then again, neither have you. And that's the same for everybody and same for every list. So if you enjoy what you see, then by all means subscribe to the Patreon, subscribe to the YouTube channel, let me know in the comments what you thought of the videos, and if there are solo games that I haven't mentioned that you want to draw attention to, put them in the comments and let people know about them, because my list is a big list, but there's a lot of solo games. I mentioned on the previous video about the stuff like Elizabeth Davison likes and that, all those GMT historical games, all those war-based solo games. I wouldn't even touch them with a barge pole, but there's going to be fans of them out there. So yeah, if there's a solo game I haven't mentioned, in the comments, talk about it. Let me know of it. Maybe I wouldn't mind giving it a shot. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next video. And remember, as always, solo or multiplayer, whatever your reasons for playing board games are, it's still only a game. So just enjoy it the way you want to. Take care, guys, and stay safe during this isolation period. I know I'm working on it.